The average person speaks their first word at 1 or 2, but I, Helen Keller, spoke mine at 6. Water. Early life wasn't too bright. Eisenhower was president, and that's when I was born in Tuscumbia, Alabama. Though just a year later, tragedy happened. I became ill. That's how I became blind, deaf, and dumb. Those were definitely not my favorite years. You might think this is difficult, but I learned what many things were by using my hands. But at that point, my parents knew it had to be done. Now I got a teacher named Miss Sullivan, but I called her teacher. Our first lesson together was learning the manual alphabet. It's how I spoke for a long time. My way of speaking. The manual alphabet is not hard to learn. It's simply putting letters into people's hands to make words. The second word I learned was Mildred, my sister's name. Another one, Arthur. That was my father's name, but I never learned my mother's name. When I became 7, my teacher taught me how to write in Braille. That is writing letters, but instead of writing words, I punched holes in paper to make letters kind of like a code. A year later, I learned to speak. That's when my famous adventures had begun. I started school at 14 years old. The school I started at was Radcliffe High School. Then my teacher went blind. Since I needed her to go to school, I got a tutor. His name was Merton S. Keith. Even though my teacher was blind, that didn't stop her from going places and doing things. When I was in high school, I traveled to Boston a lot. Of course, I had no idea what would happen next. When I kept up going to school, I finally became the first blind and deaf person to get a college diploma. Even though my teacher was blind now, John Macy is who she married. When John had to go to a business trip, teacher and I made speeches and circuses for 2 years, but then we got a letter. John Macy, teacher's beloved husband, had died. Not long after, teacher became ill of a terrible unknown illness. Then she passed away. That's when Polly came into my life, a new teacher. I helped many children in orphanages. That's the first person I helped was little Tommy Stringer. Finally, a letter came in the mail, a letter that got Polly and I so happy. I got an invitation to work at the American Foundation for the Blind. So as I grew even older, I stayed in the house more, and a few years later, my famous adventures came to a stop and I became 95. I had died of old age. So when my life ended, new adventures would begin for more, much younger than I.